Hello everyone, this is a quick tutorial for my Crackle Ambient patch I made in TC-11 on the iPad. Before we start, here's a quick tip, something I figured out way too late and it's really silly. I hope you already know this, you really should. If you're on a module, you can hold your finger down to open a context menu and add or remove certain features, which opens up a lot more possibilities. So definitely keep that in mind and try that out with all the modules. Alright, so now on with the tutorial. Here's an overview of the patch. I'm using Oscillator A and B and the FM oscillator, as well as the low-pass frequency filtered noise. This goes into the amp modulation, through the amp, through the panner, and then we've got the phaser, bandpass filter, stereo delay, and the output. And down below I have 3 ADSRs, 2 LFOs, and 1 table. Let's start from the top, the first oscillator. This is a triangle wave oscillator, and I've got a scale set up down here, so it is quantized to a range of those tones, and the note value will be decided by the Y position when I touch down. So I can touch down, it'll hold the note, and when I move my finger afterwards on the touch screen, it doesn't make any difference. For the amplitude, there's an ADSR. Let's have a look. And this is pretty simple. It has long attack and long decay ranges. And on the X position, I choose whether it's long or short. And also on touch down. So after that, when I move my finger, nothing happens. Okay, here's just oscillator A. When I touch on the left, it's dark. When I touch on the right, it's bright. And if I touch down here, it's short envelopes. And if I touch up here, it's long envelopes. I also set the display up that we have those vertical stripes, which correspond to the notes I've quantized the oscillator to. Let's have a look at oscillator B. Also a triangle wave. And the same as oscillator A actually, same scale, same note range but shifted up 1 octave. And this one only gets activated when I release my finger from the touchscreen. It's also the Y position which chooses the note, and the ADSR is also being activated when I release my finger. So let's listen to it. When I touch my finger down, nothing happens, but when I release it, it's now the same as oscillator A. When I release it up here, I've got a high note. When I release it down there, I've got a low note. And up here are longer attack and decay times, and down here are shorter ones. Now the FM oscillator. It's 2 triangle waves, but the note is decided by the angle to center, so I can rotate my finger around the center to play higher notes or lower notes. They're also quantized to my scale, which I've set up for all the oscillators, and it shares ADSR1 with oscillator 1. To listen to that, let's switch to performance view. You can see how the pitch changes when I rotate around the center. Now let's check out the low-pass frequency filtered noise. This one has a new ADSR, ADSR3, but the frequency is constant and the resonance is random whenever I touch down my finger. Let's check out the ADSR. This one is really simple. It just has a really long 20-second release time, and otherwise it's just constant. Let's listen to that. Yeah, sometimes we hear a little difference in the resonance, but generally that's pretty subtle. Okay, all 4 oscillators go through the Amplitude Modulator then. Now the modulator is a square wave, turning the audio on and off, and the frequency is dependent on the distance traveled, so how far I moved my finger on the touchpad. Let's listen to that. You can hear it switching the volume high or low, and then the further I move my finger, the faster it'll get. And this is also where the crackling comes from. Next, the signal goes through the amplifier, and this is just constant at 85%. After that, we go through the panning, and this one is just dependent on a very slow and very regular LFO. Let's check that out. It's all constant, very low frequency, and that's it. Next, the signal goes through the phaser, and this is also constant at a very low frequency, so it's barely noticeable. Then the signal goes through the bandpass filter. This is modulated by a slow constant LFO, and the resonance is controlled with the X position. Next up, we have a stereo delay. And this one is constant too. And then we reach the output. What we didn't use is the table number 1. That's actually an artifact from a previous version, and I don't need that. And that concludes the tutorial actually. And as you hopefully saw, is that it's a very simple patch. It just layers 3 oscillators plus some noise, and it just fades them in and out at different times. And then you have the amplitude modulation, which I think adds a lot of character, a very subtle phaser, bandpass filter, and the stereo delay, which is also just constant and isn't modulated at all. So I hope this was useful. Let me know if you have any questions, and enjoy TC-11.